I'm sharing some insights from my experience unionizing. I worked in tech and we didn't get very far, but hopefully some of this is still useful to you. How do you talk to people about unionizing, by which I mean, how do you make those conversations happen? It's a little difficult, and as I mentioned before, you want to stay as discreet as possible. I'll talk about what I did and what general practices you might want to follow. The big thing is that you don't want your company or organization finding out that you're having these conversations. Try to keep them offline and off-site to the extent that you can. Don't use like your company email or call someone on work phones or something like that. In my case, I was working in a company that was all remote, so I couldn't, talk to someone in person and say, hey, can we talk about something really quickly? I had to send pretty cryptic DMs to people on Slack saying like, hey, wanted to talk to you about something work related, but is it okay if we talk about it not on work channels? And honestly, it was good that people were cool about it. I think maybe a little creeped out at first, especially if they didn't know me super well, but people were open to it. I think one thing that helped in my case as well was that I was with the company early enough and long enough that a lot of people knew of me, and to pat myself on the back a little bit, I just had a relatively good reputation, so people felt they could trust that I was serious about this. For that first conversation as well, you'll want to share a little bit about, why you want the union, why you think it's a good idea. In my case, I wanted us to have some leverage before what I knew would be another round of layoffs. Again, we never got very far. The furthest we got was the first round of conversations. But you also want to listen to people, gauge their sense of whether they're open to it, what their thoughts are, and all of that. That's pretty much most of the insight I have for this particular conversation. Again, we didn't get very far, but I'll make a few other videos on things that we did in our initial attempts to unionize. And I would also love to hear other people's suggestions for this. Again, we didn't get very far, so I couldn't figure out what ended up being more successful or not. But if anyone has experience or knowledge of the early stages of unionizing, what do you recommend in terms of those initial conversations and how to make those initial conversations happen in a safe, discreet way? I'm doing a series on unionization. I'll talk about my efforts. We were in tech, we didn't get very far, but hopefully this is still useful information for you. Let's talk about the kinds of objections you'll face in unionizing. Some people are going to have, well, most people will have concerns. Some people are just going to be straight up opposed. You can move some of them are going to stay that way, but let's talk about some of it. So it's important to validate people's concerns. You want to make sure they know that you're not brushing away everything they're worried about, because unions aren't a magical solution to every problem someone has, and they come with trade-offs. One of the things I heard quite a bit was just concern over people losing their jobs. Companies aren't supposed to retaliate, but it's only illegal if you get caught. So companies do sometimes fire people for union activity. Some people just won't think that a union can do much. They might think, yeah, sure, we can make a union, but even if we succeed, what's it really going to do? Some people won't be happy with the idea that they won't make as much money under a union, which may or may not be true. Unions do charge fees. You need to send your fees to the union so that someone is paid to help organize activity. You can fund a strike fund and all that, but that means money out of people's pockets. One specific concern I heard too was someone who was worried about the flattening effect on salaries for people who are, more capable, harder workers. If they're compensated more for that, they might not be the happiest about the fact that that might not be true if the union is successful. Some people just flat out hate the idea of unions, and you're gonna need to be prepared to have those conversations too. For all those examples, you'll need to be prepared to come up with, counter arguments. And for the first one, for example, where people are afraid of losing their jobs, You need to make sure to be able to promise discretion and as much protection as you possibly can. For the second issue, where people are worried that unions just won't do that much, find some examples where unions have been successful in your industry specifically. One thing that was really heartening for me was seeing the writers' strike result in the union contracts being so much better than they otherwise could have been. So if you can find other good examples like that, that can help people. As for that third thing about salary flattening or people losing some money to union fees, bring up examples of where unionized workers tend to make more because the union is so good at advocating for all employees. The salary flattening bit, that might just be something people have to open up to. The particular person who mentioned that in my case was open to unions in general. He just mentioned that that was a thing that was one of the things that made him a little less supportive, but overall he was still on our side about it. There are some people with these reasons, with any other reasons, that you're going to need to spend time winning over. Some people you just can't win over at all. But you don't need everybody, you just need enough people, which is ideally about 2/3 of people. 50% really for a union election is all you need, but you want a stronger core of support so the company can't just like fire a few people and derail the union that way. But yeah, you're not gonna solve everybody's issues. There are things people will bring up where you'll have to say, yeah, that's probably gonna happen and that sucks. Do try to address them as much as you can. Talk about what measures you can take to, limit any of the downsides people are worried about, and really emphasize the things that a union is good for that, will make those downsides worth the risk. I'll be putting a few more videos out about this in the next week or so. I have earlier videos in my profile. You might need to scroll back a little bit because a lot's been happening where I live. But anyway, I'll keep putting this stuff out, and thank you for following along. I'm making a series of videos about unionizing. I did it in tech when we didn't get very far, but I figured I'd share what I've learned in case this is helpful for other people in unionizing efforts. One thing I wish I'd known is that it is emotionally exhausting. I'm just going to be talking about that right now, and you want to be prepared for that. One thing that's kind of emotionally exhausting is that a lot of the people you talk to are going to be afraid and nervous, and you'll need to put in effort to calm them down. A lot of it's around the company retaliating, which is technically illegal, but companies do that anyway. And it takes a lot of emotional energy to do that. So think of every time you've had to talk down one of your friends about something that was stressing them out, and imagine doing that again and again and again for a lot of your coworkers. Aside from that, people often also took the opportunity to vent their frustrations about the company when we had these conversations, which, was kind of a helpful sign of, oh, this person might be pretty supportive. But that's also emotionally draining. So again, you'll want to be prepared for that. Be prepared for people to vent, for you to listen and validate them and all that. It takes a lot of energy. How do you deal with this? Make sure to pace yourself. These conversations take a lot out of you. I made the mistake of trying to take on too much myself, and I got close to burning out, and you don't want to do that. Make sure you've got enough people having these conversations so that the burden's spread out a little bit, and make sure to put yourself in an emotional place where you're ready to have very emotional conversations. That's all on that. I'm going to do 2 more videos, and you can look back in my profile for earlier videos on unionization. I hope this is all helping. I'm doing a series of videos on unionization. I was doing it specifically in tech and we didn't get very far, but hopefully what I have to share helps with your own unionizing efforts. I'm going to give a relatively final overview of what went well and I think what we might have done differently. We only got through the initial conversations with people and not even all the way through. We kind of realized that we were not going to hit the level of support we needed, and a second layoff hit so many of us, including myself anyway, so that kind of derailed the efforts. All to say, what would I have done differently with what I know now? I think we probably did get all the support we could have at the time, so I don't know that there was any way we could really be ultimately successful, but I can talk about some of the logistics I think we could have done differently. The big thing, and maybe I'm just a type A person, but the big thing I can think is we could have run a little bit of a more disciplined operation. Um, we were pretty loosey-goosey. I ended up taking on a lot of the initial conversations myself. I think we should have had the core group itself do more of those reach outs if I'd known how tiring this was all going to be, and to formally assign people like, oh, you're going to talk to so and so and so and so and so. You're going to talk to so and so and so and so and so and so, and have regular meetings about progress, if we wanted to update any plans, things like that. So that's probably the one major thing I would have done differently, is have it be a little bit more disciplined and organized. All in all, though, I would say it went pretty well. We probably would not have been able to get enough support in time to head off the second layoff, which I knew was probably going to happen. But one of the biggest successes, I think, is just that no one found out about it. I remember a while after I had been let go, once enough other people who were involved with this effort were no longer at the company for various reasons, I talked to some other people at the company who I trusted, who were not, and they were managers. I couldn't let them know about the union effort at all. And I mentioned it, and they had no idea it was going on at all. So we were really good at keeping things discreet and quiet. So yeah, you might want to make sure you have a relatively disciplined, formal operation to some extent. That might not be for everybody. It's what I kind of wish we'd done differently on our side. Anyway, I have one more video coming up about this that will end the series, and if you want to look at my other videos, you can scroll through my profile, just look for anything that says unionization on the text.